During fetal development, what is the purpose of this structure? Gabby here from bootcamp.com, and here we're looking at a view along the posterior and more superior aspects of the heart. So right over here, we're able to see the apex of the heart, and here's going to be its posterior surface. We're going to be able to see the pulmonary veins. So here are the pulmonary veins that are shunting that oxygenated blood back into the left atrium of the heart. We could also see the pulmonary arteries, so they will be shunting blood from the right ventricle or from the pulmonary trunk to the lungs to get oxygenated. We could also see a couple other structures here, so the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava that bring blood from the body to the heart, so into that right atrium. And then lastly over here, we're able to see the ascending aorta and the arch of the aorta with its branches. So I want us to zoom in here to better visualize the structure that's tagged. So this specific structure that you can see is a ligamentous structure and is actually a remnant of the specific structure that was needed during fetal development. So we can see that this structure here attaches onto the pulmonary trunk. So here are the pulmonary arteries. We can see that a lot better. So the pulmonary trunk will be giving off those pulmonary arteries, so it will be located somewhere in this area. So we see it coming off the pulmonary trunk, and we also see it connecting to the arch of the aorta. So when we say that this is a remnant from embryological development, it essentially means that this used to be a fully functioning structure during fetal development. Now, as a baby gets born, eventually 12 to 24 hours, generally speaking, in a healthy baby, this structure will actually start to obliterate and close. And eventually by 2 to 3 weeks, it fully closes and eventually forms this ligamentous structure called the ligamentum arteriosum. Now, the ligamentum arteriosum is going to be the remnant of the ductus arteriosus. So during fetal development, this specific structure is called the ductus arteriosus because it is actually open. It's left open to allow for blood to shunt in between pulmonary trunk to the arch of the aorta. So remember, in fetuses, the lungs aren't actually fully developed. So the blood that's coming from the heart needs to bypass the lungs. And in one way that it can do that is through this ductus arteriosus. But as the fetus or as the baby is born, eventually this ductus arteriosus needs to close and obliterate because the lungs become functional. So we want to make sure that all that blood gets shunted to the lungs via those pulmonary arteries in order to get oxygenated. So when the structure becomes obliterated or becomes a remnant, we refer to it as the ligamentum arteriosum. So don't confuse those two. Ductus arteriosus is the structure during the fetal development that's still fully functional, and then the ligamentum arteriosum is the structure that is the remnant of the ductus arteriosus that is found, 12 to 24 hours it starts forming after birth. In certain instances where this actual structure does not obliterate, we refer to it as a patent ductus arteriosus. So in a baby or even in a fully formed adult, so what can happen is blood gets shunted between the pulmonary trunk and between the arch of the aorta and essentially starts to bypass the lungs. So you can see how that might be an issue because now we have some deoxygenated blood that's being mixed with the oxygenated blood in the aorta that will eventually travel to the rest of the body. So to answer our question here, so during fetal development, what is the purpose of this structure? This structure is responsible for shunting blood from the pulmonary trunk to the aorta.